With version 1.3.0, all Unusable Engineering effects now have a slot sequencer. Instead of making a separate explanation video for every plugin, I will use this video to give you a common sense on how it works and give you some examples on what you can use it for. Depending on the effect, you either have 4 or 8 available slots. Each slot stores most of the effect's parameters. Some controls are kept outside the slots, usually things like output, input and dry wet. There are a few exceptions where I found that sequencing dry and wet made kinda cool effect, but more on that later. When a slot is active, any parameter changes updates the slot. If I switch to another slot, the effect recalls the settings saved there. So each slot works like a little preset system inside the plugin. The Slew controls how the effect moves between settings. With the clock turned off, Slew is set as a time value of up to 8 seconds. At low settings, some parameters may still move slightly rather than changing instantly. That comes from the normal parameter smoothing in that plugin. Let's make 2 different slot settings and move between them manually. Once the sequencer is set to internal or host, the slew setting changed from a time value to a percentage of the set step length. For example, if the internal clock is running at 1 Hz and slew is set to 50%, the effect spends half a second moving towards the next slot and half a second resting at the slot value. The same applies when using host clock divisions. With slower clock rates and longer slew, you can create slowly evolving changes. At faster rate, the system starts working more like a modulation source. One example here is tension reactor. If I change dispersion setting between slots, the sequencer repeatedly changes the behavior and tension of the spring module. This creates a repeating pitch movement in the springs. To make sequences faster to set up, you can copy and paste the parameter content between slots. There is also a random button. Randomization follows the current slew setting, so you can create some really weird movement by just clicking randomly and see where it takes you. Sometimes this gives you something useful, other times something totally horrific. You can disable a slot by shift clicking or double clicking on it. The sequencer will then skip that slot. You rarely need to use all 4 or 8 slots. In reality, just moving between 2 slots can create quite dramatic effects that wasn't possible otherwise. For example, changing the band levels in frequency guillotine can give you some nice tremolo effects. Changing the pan positions instead can give you some cool auto pan effects. There are a few differences between the plugins and the slot sequencer. In tension reactor and ensemble diffuser, the dry-wet control is included in the slots. This is because I found it much more interesting to actually sequence that control with the others. In harmonic dissector, the LFO part are excluded from the slots. This is because I find it kind of cool to automate the audio rate modulation while having the sequence changing the depth on another rate. As the geometric series plugins already had slots and slewing, I have added the rest of the controls and the sequencing part to the top left corner. For all the other plugins, the slot sequencer is attached below the regular plugin area. The system works in the same basic way across all plugins, but the effect it has on sound is very different for each of them. The step order is fixed and all the steps use the same step length. I made this decision to keep it simple, easy to read and fast to set up. After using these effects with these movement settings, I find it quite hard to go back to using them as just static effects. Anyway, I hope you find these slot sequencers useful. And please send me any examples where you use them in a cool way. If you want to know more about the Unusable Engineering range, check out unusable.net for more information. Thanks for watching.